So, good morning, good afternoon, colleagues, and good evening, according to where you are joining. Thanks a lot for joining the December webinar of the LGMA constituency, the local governments and municipal authorities constituency for COP28. This is our monthly sessions. We have been running, I think it's more than 5 years now. Every year we're having this monthly webinars. Um, every year when we run this webinar, it was towards the end, which was the COP. And obviously, now that the COP is concluded, this is mainly debriefing as such, collectively with our colleagues who were on site in COP in Dubai, but also those who are following us remotely. We are just giving a couple of more seconds and maybe one more minute to our colleagues to settle down at the call so that they can comfortably follow. Um, Today, I am delighted that we will be joined by our colleague Leah Renalder from Beyond Habitat, and we also appreciate her sacrifice because she's already was supposed to be on leave, but it's really appreciated that she could share her experience, especially when we discuss the ministerial and the pavilion as well. My colleague Ariel is also joining us from the ICLEI's communications team manager. She will particularly also share with us how we as collectively have been uh, really performing in the joint statements, outcomes, announcements, interventions. Knowing that we are at the end of this or at the beginning of the end of the year break, we are expecting that participation for this session may be a bit relatively limited, but the purpose is that the recording of the session is available later on so that during your Christmas breaks or winter breaks or summer breaks, how you name it, you can have a look at it. And obviously, we will follow up, especially immediately after the beginning of the year, regarding the scheduling of our monthly webinars. Also, we will have our bulletin also to be issued, monthly bulletin as early as possible in January, but I think it could be the third week or so that we can still receive input from our partners. So without further ado, I think we have reached to a level of saturation of our participants. I see many colleagues familiar in the process, but I also see very few new names. This also is important in terms of how we run this today's webinar. Um, if if we are comfortable, we could give appropriate moments in time so that we can open the floor for inputs. But for newcomers, it could also be helpful if we go through the whole presentation. It's like 23 slides in total, and then open the floor. In terms of we have basic background information slide. I do not want to spend too much time, except just to recap how we prepared for the COP28 in terms of negotiations and stock takes. Then I wanted to share some time for the outcomes, much more time for LGMA at COP28. It is mainly really a recap of how we have engaged. Um, and the last one slide is reserved for our initial priorities and agendas for 2024 and 2025, uh, because it will be a really intense journey, and it's good for us to have the basic overview. With this in mind, let's proceed. LGMA is the voice of subnationals, towns, cities, and regions. We are engaging throughout the year. We support the presidency and secretariat, the climate action agenda, but also we interact with the parties to the UNFCCC, especially in this negotiation moment, because the decisions are adopted by parties, the texts are submitted or proposed by the parties. So our dialogue with the UNFCCC negotiators are is extremely important. Other than this webinar, we have monthly bulletin, we have working groups. Actually, we should have added our communications working group, which was impressive this year. So that is showing us the differentiated skills and expertise we have inside this family, and we also have a WhatsApp group. This is now supposed to be outdated because the role of the Egyptian presidency has officially finished by the beginning of the first day of the COP. But obviously, the presidency, COP28 presidency, has taken up throughout this period. These names that we have been seeing here made remarkable leadership, demonstrated remarkable leadership by all means. And of course, those who are not here, I think the presidency, COP28 has one of the largest teams supporting this, and they have one of the longest lasting preparatory teams. So that is already giving the reason why this COP was successful, that they really took lessons from all the previous COPs and introduced a fantastic energy, momentum, and vision and innovation by all means. Throughout the year, we were delighted as LGMA is this agenda of multi-level action is now enriched by so many actors coming into the game, especially inside and outside the UNFCCC. But this year was remarkable with the presidency and the Bloomberg philanthropist partnership on the local climate action summit, which was concluding with a remarkable champ. We will touch upon it later on. Before this COP, we were already expecting this COP will be a significantly remarkable for us because we had already made so many achievements throughout the year in many, many fronts inside the UNFCCC, outside the UNFCCC. So many statements were released at the heads of state level or ministerial level, which all recognize multi-level action and urbanization. That was already giving us the confidence that we will be strong here. In parallel to this, we also made a remarkable mobilization about our colleagues around the world, either they're accredited to the NFCC or regardless of their accreditation to the NFCC. LGMA covers is open for all of them. So we have compiled our statement as early as around June, July, and it was open for endorsement. And we have made this uh, impressive 65 plus partners. This is not showing the latest logo soup, we call it. There is another one, and the final version is in this link that you have seen it. And I think everybody has acknowledged that having this position paper at the beginning as early as possible made a huge support to our interventions, to our dialogues, and to our achievements at COP. Um, in addition to our focus to the UNFCCC, we also were engaged in a remarkable journey called Stocktake for Climate Emergency. That was the local leadership for subnational inputs to global stocktake, and the lessons learned have been also very, very helpful for us on the way how we want to take this forward beyond the Dubai and COP28. And remarkably, this was also a great experience in collaboration with the UNGO constituency. Again, this was our collaboration that to engage youth in the decision making at the local level, but also global level, which is a decision or paragraph in Glasgow Climate Pact, but we made it implemented in a very robust and innovative model, and we were very, very happy that the UNGO colleagues were also embracing this in connection to their Conference of the Youth and other initiatives. So while we were making all our mobilization, our positions, the local to stock takes and position papers, and to the negotiations, the key was the inputs or submissions to the global stock take. And what we have seen throughout the year was reflected here again. We have seen around 19 parties or party groups, which were representing, I think, more than 75% of the world's population. And if you look at this list, they had some sort of reference to uh, multi-level action and urbanization. There's expectation for an outcome from the GSD in different, let's say, strength. And the chairs of the SBEs, which were the ones who are leading the negotiation, they also supported this because they have come up with some critical paragraphs, especially those three were really the most innovative ones for us. And this gave us the confidence that the outcome will really have a good recognition and references to our proposals. Of course, all those before COP. And now we will discuss what we did at COP. But before that, we should start by saying what has been outcome of COP. You have heard it was extended by one night only and one day only. For me, I was expecting, or even it could have been finished on the same day as scheduled because Emirates presidency was really, really ambitious and they're doing their best. But 1 day extension is not that bad still. It is, I think it's still acceptable that it is finished in the defined timeline, considering even 72 hours of delays. So just 24 hours, not that bad. If you listen to the recordings of the last plenary, you can say that now there is, of course, a plethora of decisions, but the most important ones are packaged as the UAE consensus, the Emirates consensus. This includes the youth champion decision, which is institutionalizing the youth engagement into the process. You remember since Paris, we have the presidency now, since Paris, we have the high-level climate action champions. Now we have the youth climate champions also embedded into the institutional framework of the university. Obviously, we heard the younger colleagues had some concerns and they had some expressions, but overall, there is a huge sentiment, both from parties and as well as from ICLE and LGMA, that such an institutionalization is a good effort. It can always be improved, but having this embedded into the UNFCCC structure is a very positive outcome. And again, congratulations to the presidency. The rest are much more operative decisions. One on loss and damage, which was remarkably achieved at the beginning of the COP, the first day. The loss and damage, the way it was negotiated, the way it was designed, and the way it was adopted was by no means anything similar to any other previous processes. It was the most waited, let's say, 30 years of waiting period, but the rollout was so rapid. In one less than a year, it became a reality. And in that sense, the leadership from the global south, especially from Egypt and Emirates, played a huge role. Both of them have put a huge effort to this process. The final negotiations were very, very difficult, and in that sense, it was really making the success already at the beginning was a really good strategic move. And there was no negotiation on loss and damage in during the COP28, but there were more financial contribution to the fund coming up. So a fund that is agreed, designed, adopted, and populated with money was remarkable in less than 14 months. That is a huge success. As I said, it was something better late than never. Especially the small island states and the list of countries were waiting for this for 30 years. Now it is there. Um, Global Stocktake outcome is the other part of the package. We will come to that. The Just Transition Work Program. So it is now in practice. Sharm el Sheikh mitigation program is shaping. There were a lot of discussions throughout the year, especially on road transport and energy, and you can see this impact into the GST outcome, especially. That's why it is important to have a work program, and hopefully the next iteration will also produce results. Sharm el Sheikh global goal adaptation was most important thing that was expected. We will touch up on it, but it was also delivered. Um, Other than that, there were several decisions. One of the interesting things is that the decisions on the market mechanisms and the flexibility mechanisms were not concluded at this COP, or the negotiations were not concluded. This is important because this means carbon markets will still go through some limbos, but there was a progress on the non-market approaches, although it was not perfect, but it is showing when obviously when it is the presidency, when the global south collaboration shows how they can influence the results of the decisions. Obviously, this is something that is for me remarkable as well. Um, we will not go into all of the details, but as a first bird's eye view of what does it mean overall. I'm now keeping it a bit in multi-level action aside, but if you look at the whole COP28 and its outcomes, it's one of the most ambitious because we have a language for transition away from fossil fuels, and in fact, we have to add renewable energy targets. Renewable energy targets was an effort from the Renewable Energy Committee communities since 2002. At the Rio Plus 10, there was huge expectation for goals for renewable energy. This was rejected. So 20 years later, renewable energy has found its way in a climate space. Fossil fuel is for the first time addressed. The transition is there. Loss and damage is there. And very importantly, there is a roadmap by the nations. It's not a breakthrough agenda of the champions. It is the three presidencies. They said that we will not leave this here. We will act collectively, and especially recalling all the initiatives announced by the presidency in the first 2 3 days, or even the first week. All of these will feed into this. So even though there are frustrations on some of the languages, if you consider it in its entirety, it is the most ambitious. It is opening a completely new era for climate action. We all know those decisions adopted do not guarantee that they are implemented. Therefore, we have to keep an eye. But having them on the table is a huge, huge progress. This is also the most inclusive COP. Uh, the World Climate Action Summit was really opened the doors, except a few hours where the heads of states were on their own, which is, of course, understandable, including security reasons. But the rest of the World Climate Action Summit were open for parties and non-party stakeholders. I've seen a lot of pictures that students, youth, and local leaders, some national leaders who were involved in this process were interacting on the corridors. I remember in 2009 how difficult it was in Copenhagen, how stressful was it in Copenhagen. But the mode in Dubai was extremely opposite side, and I think that role, played a huge role in the process. The During the COP, beyond the World Climate Action Summit, which is an initiative of the presidency, it continued. It did not finish there on the first week. The way the Majlis, they call it, was convened, the way it was broadcasted, there were resistance from some parties to keep it closed, but it was non-party stakeholders in there. That was broadcasted globally, and the way it was constructed, like the Talanoa model, that people were ministers were interacting, they were looking eye to eye. That was instrumental. And just a couple of days before, presidencies delivered COP28 open dialogue. This was the first innovation of the UNFCCC process on the parties and non-parties getting together. In the past 2 years, we could not materialize it, but this year's COP28 dialogue was extremely functioning. We had delegations from Global North, Global South, all the constituencies were there, and it was again demonstrating the inclusivity of the process. And finally, look at the agenda. We are going beyond traditional climate mitigation adaptation. We are going to all elements of climate emergency. We are addressing nature. We are addressing food, culture, health. These are the root causes of climate crisis. So once now they're on board, we can definitely say that we're in the climate emergency mode of action. That's why it is becoming a huge process, making this process very exciting. And finally, multi-level. We have not been involved in so many cases in the past. We have been enjoying the local climate action summit, champ 70 plus nations, but we have a specific paragraph on multi-level action. Let's remember, in Paris Agreement, we had recognition of all levels of government. In Glasgow, we had the need for the urgent need for multi-level action. And here in Dubai, the decision urges parties and non-party stakeholders for multi-level action. The language is completely now going to a new era. That's why it is not the best we had asked for. We had also asked for other things, but I remember the previous revisions of this text was much weaker. So I think we should be collectively celebrating what we have achieved, and we will continue to move forward, especially with the results of the CHAMP and the Ministerial or Urban Regeneration Climate Ministerial. And of course, in the multi-level, this COP was again to be remarkable for the LGMA reinforcing its diversity, its unity, and its impact collectively. On a personal note, there are a lot of different discussions about what this summit looks like. A lot of comparison to Paris and Glasgow. I personally believe this is equal to 1992 Earth Summit, taking into account all the above issues, and also the fact that if you look at the SDGs summit and others, this COP has been really the most encompassing and most remarkable. Um, I can now go to COP, but I see a couple of chats. I don't know whether there any of the colleagues. Um, oh, the sound was not crisp. Oh my God, I've missed this again once again. Ariel, you are listening. Was it too bad in terms of my sound or
Uh,
Kata?
It was fine for me. It
yeah,
was fine.
Eunice, it does sound okay.
No
Yeah,
worries.
yeah.
Okay,
All good.
good. Thank you, thank you. So, if there's any colleague who wants to intervene at this moment, we can give a break. But if not, we can immediately jump to LGMA agenda. I see so far no hands. Let's proceed. Um, so LGMA COP28, I recommend you to have a look at the homepage of our LGMA, citizenagents.org, especially the homepage. We have captured all the relevant links as much as possible, and it's still work in progress, but here you can see all our interventions, announcements, the key outcome documents, our letters, our statements, you can access to our daily updates, and you can watch the pavilion live stream. In the next couple of minutes, I will give to floor to Ariel to dig more into details of this. But now I'm comfortable that this COP was one of the best, and it's not the best in terms of our preparedness before, our engagement during the COP, and our wrap up and making all our documents available. So a big congratulations to all the LGMA constituency partners. In relation to the outcomes, we have made a long statement immediately the day after. Again, this was not seen before. The day after, all the LGMA leaders commented on what we have achieved. They were all involved in the negotiations. Um, but what we know is that the main ones are loss and damage, stock take, and global goal adaptation. We have highlighted several paragraphs here, and in this link here you see you can access to this file. It's immediately available on the website. It contains our quotes from our leaders, but also the full list of all the paragraphs, so that this gives you really the most comprehensive uh, where we have finished at COP28. So I see Anthony providing response. Thanks, Anthony. Uh, and it's truly appreciated your support. We have missed you. I think I also saw Jennifer was not able to join us, but with the WWF One City Planet Challenge team, we have enjoyed all the collaboration together, and I'm very happy that we are building it together. So the decisions that you have seen here was a result of our collective effort. I mean, if we did not have a remarkable peaking moment like Elkas, we would have never reached to Chan. But if we did not have the ministerial and the consistent follow-up of the LGMA in all the agendas, every moment, every hour, we would not have these paragraphs inserted as well. So that's why I think it's important to acknowledge this year we were very careful in drawing our advocacy campaign. We carefully waited and followed how ELCAs, how the ministerial rolled out, how presidency had presented all these outcomes. But immediately when the texts are out, we told, we agreed collectively that this time our target is the parties, because the presidency has delivered its mission. Now it's time to parties to put on the table texts that would be acceptable for others. And therefore we mobilized a step up campaign. In a couple of hours, we finalized our positions. We made a public announcement. We reached out to the delegations on site and virtually, and we followed that. So after this one, we have produced iterated documents. We have made additional suggestions. So we followed hourly what has happened and how we can make it better. And we have received positive feedbacks from the presidency, from the parties, from the secretariat, saying that this was really the type of advocacy we should be demonstrating, and in terms of professionalism and also the ambition. This one page is summary, but of course it is just a tip of the iceberg. It's a huge machinery behind that. It is 2 days of a local climate action summit, starting with the plenary, and the day after ELCA's hub and ELCA's events. I think we heard 15 events, more than 200 leaders, subnational leaders attending, numerous reports, outcomes, and here in this slide you can see the links that you can follow later on. All of them you can reach from the LGMA website, by the way. And the good news, by the time the champ was announced at the ELCAS, it was 63. By the time we finished uh, COP28, we reached to 71 nations. And it's really the diversity that we have really been proud of. And of course, more to come, but we are really, really excited and proud of this achievement. And it is a remarkable game changer. Once again, ELCAS and CHAMP, especially CHAMP, is a commitment of nations to work with their local environment. So that is much different than what we have ever had before. And a commitment of nations wouldn't be possible without this presidency's leadership and our support, but also the instrumental role played by Bloomberg Philanthropies and particularly Michael Bloomberg personally, but also the whole his team supporting this process. And maybe I give a break here because this is the moment where I'd like to invite my colleague Leah, especially to refer what was our achievement at the ministerial meeting on urbanization. We also have a discussion on Pavilion, which UN Habitat was a co-convener. But I think at this stage, let's start with the ministerial. Leah, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much, Yunus, and good morning, everybody from Nairobi. I hope you had the chance to at least relax and take a breathe moment a little bit after this COP craziness. I mean, just really briefly, I think most of you were at the ministerial meeting. First of all, a big, massive thank you to everybody, because I think this ministerial meeting has really demonstrated how far we've come collectively over the past years, but also just the big change between last year and this year. I mean, if you were at the ministerial meeting last year, we had, I think, 300 seats at that ministerial meeting this year. Based on that success, we were able to secure one of the biggest rooms with 1,300 people capacity, and even that room was full. I mean, that was just a fantastic testament of how important that agenda is, but also how fantastic everybody here was on mobilizing not only ministers, but mayors, the entire community. So a big thank you. And I think we collectively were really happy with how everything went. We had maybe we're still crunching the numbers, but we had at least 50 ministerial representatives in the room. We counted another 10 to at least 10 to 20 national government delegations that were in the room that didn't make an intervention. I mean, as you see here on the slide, over 200 LGMA representatives and in total 1,000 participants. So again, really happy about this, in particular about this pairing that took place. So pairing national ministers with mayors, that was really well received. It was a strong, so to say, in action representation of this multi-level governance agenda. And then, of course, everything closed off with Brazil doing such a pairing with the minister and then the mayor of Belém, really also saying that Belém COP30 will be a really strong urban COP, which is, of course, something we are all incredibly excited about. We did have a joint outcome statement, what you see here on the slide, also something that I think it has been very well received. It's a joint outcome statement of both the Local Climate Action Summit and the ministerial meeting, because in the end, these were two events that contributed to the same goal, really wanting to put this topic of multi-level climate action and the importance of that on the COP agenda, and also to inform the COP outcomes. So if you haven't seen it yet, it's really short and crisp, 1.5 pages, calling upon really with 10 outcomes summarizing both of these meetings. And of course, with the idea that we need to have a local climate action summit and a ministerial meeting also at future COPs. In case you wonder why was Brazil so dominant in the closing and not the COP29 host? Of course, at that moment we did not know yet who was going to be the COP29 host, but maybe to say Azerbaijan was participating in the ministerial meeting and also gave a strong intervention. And now, if you allow me to do a brief outlook into what happens after COP28, I mean, after COP is always before COP, but is to say, I mean, there's of course next year a lot of really exciting big meetings and events on the agenda. So we from UN Habitat side, and I think from LGMA side, and everybody's agenda is to really ensure that we connect the dots and keep that momentum after Christmas strong and going. So that of course means linking it to UNEA that's upcoming, linking it to really, I mean, the SBs in Bonn, the ICLE World Congress, but then also, of course, WOOF is on the horizon in November, and then on the road to COP29. We are, from your Habitat side, also particularly interested in ensuring that we can, I mean, WOOF is happening directly before COP. I think the week before is how can we bring that momentum that's happening at WOOF and bring that directly to the COP? How can we ensure that we have a continuation of that conversation, both at WOOF and then also bringing that really to some kind of ministerial dialogue also happening at COP29. We're starting the conversations informally with Azerbaijan also on ensuring that that this is happening, because in case you don't know, I mean, WOOF 13 will also be in Baku, so it's a very natural link in ensuring that also COP29 will have a strong urban agenda. And from what we already hear through our contacts is the president or Azerbaijan is really keen on positioning themselves, of course, strongly on this climate agenda, but also strongly on the turning cities into strong this strong urbanization and climate change agenda. So we're hopeful that we can make a strong narrative and a continuation of that strong narrative happening. I think I'll stop here in case of any questions, of course. Happy to answer. Thanks again, everybody. And back to you, Jonas.
Thank you, Leah. And again, huge congratulations to you, Bernard, and the whole climate team inside UN Habitat, all leadership of UN Habitat. Sharif has always been a champion of our agendas. Really, we have elevated, as you said. It's been a remarkable journey since Sharm el Sheikh. Throughout the year, we also had the UN Habitat Assembly resolutions. So we are all empowering ourselves. And I must confess, I had been attending so many plenary meetings in the COP. The one that we had on ministerial urbanization was one of the best plenaries in terms of its atmosphere, its outcomes. So congratulations. And as you have seen in the slide, we as LGMA were a core partner, especially the subnational engagement in this process, and all our leaders having a strong support to all the statements and being actively involved was really a demonstration of our collective efforts. And really, we will come to this point about Baku because let's be realistic. Many of the LGMA partners, they don't have a strong membership. And Baku was announced as the host of the World Urban Forum before it was announced as the COP29 host city or host country. So in that sense, we have a huge expectation for UN Habitat to help us. And obviously, we have experiences in Cairo, Egypt. The World Cities Day was in Glasgow and in Luxor. Then we've gone to Sharm el Sheikh. Now we're going to Cairo for the WOOF. And similarly, Baku will host the COP. And then after Belém, they will host the World Urban Forum. So it's the urban community is never leaving the climate community alone. We will always be going hand in hand. And we are making sure that the bar is always going higher and higher. And so, meanwhile, we have seen comments in the chat boxes from our colleagues. Those colleagues can also intervene if you want. You can raise your hand. We can unmute you. But let's start with Carl Wright from Commonwealth Local Government Forum. A huge congratulations to the LGMA and my work. Thank you very much. And actually, Carl is leading also both still supporting Commonwealth Local Government, but also his own constituents in the UK. We have a response from Joshua Cooper. He was 1 week available in Dubai. I think he were one of those ALCAS delegations. That's great. Yes, Karen Soenberger, we will talk about the biodiversity agenda as well here in the last slide. But definitely, how we will engage it, we'll discuss this as well. Just give us a 1 more minute for that one. Leah has shared the outcome statement and the link chat box. That's great. Um, and there was also the ministerial where LGMs were represented by the Deputy Secretary General. Kobe Brandt, who was part of the joint statement on biodiversity and COP as well. Leah, we can go back to you once again. You wanted to compliment on the Sturgeon chant.
Yes, just maybe because I realized we might be moving on now to the pavilion, which also, thanks to the entire ICLE team who were absolutely fantastic in putting this together. I mean, I think everybody came up and said, wow, what a fantastic team. So Joe, Ariel, team, it was just fantastic what you did there. So big thank you. So I'm hoping we can celebrate that afterwards. But just really briefly, wanted to say, I mean, fantastic that we have Champ and we are also together with ICLE, together with LGMA, really keen on seeing and already are starting to work on how can we bring many of these initiatives together. How can we bring Champ and Surge together? We had a session on that during COP. You see it here as one of the snapshots on the screen. And we are really keen on ensuring that there is a strong joint narrative and are working on that strongly before Christmas, but also more dedicatedly after Christmas. If there are any questions on that, of course, happy to answer. But just to say, we haven't forgotten about that. We are really keen on connecting these dots together and already seeing also in case you have heard about that, the Paris summit that's happening, Paris Summit on Buildings and Construction.
Yep.
I'm missing the exact name. That's happening in the beginning of March. Also seeing that as a point where we can put some of these put some of these thoughts out. That also aligns very well with the timing of the first executive board meeting that UN Habitat will have in 2024, where we also need to put forward some of these the thinking and the strategies around how we can put Surge into practice. So a lot will be happening in the first quarter of 2024. And with that, back to you, Yunus, on the pavilion.
Excellent. And feel free to jump out the pavilion because you were the co-convener of the pavilion as well. And thank you very much for your kind words. And I'd like to acknowledge, especially our colleague Kata, who has already been also part of the pavilion team and running this webinar as well. She was supporting remotely from Bonn with a 3 hour difference. As this is an example of really a collective work. Yes, pavilion is something that we are proud, especially since Glasgow, we're running this at the Blue Zone. And in that sense, this year we have even elevated to a new scope, multi-level action and urbanization, especially with UN Habitat on board, Scotland and Bloomberg Philanthropies as co-hosts through their fantastic political and financial support, and numerous partners on board. And let me just show immediately our pavilion logo suite, which is all the partners who have contributed in the design of the sessions, and that they brought their energy and knowledge and network into this pavilion, making it really one of the most lively pavilions of the whole COP. I have seen a number of pavilions, but ours was really with its transparency, with its really perfectly functioning hybrid features. It was really, really one of the best across COP28. And for us, it was really peaking of our experience in the space. You can see from this slide, This is the end of the family photo of the high level opening. Unfortunately, by that time, UNFLET executive director had to leave, as well as Scottish First Minister, so they could not join this. But as you have noticed, the pavilion already opened with this notion of all levels of governments hand in hand together. And throughout the sessions, we had numerous partners from youth, from the civil society as well joining us. All the sessions of the pavilion are online. You can watch it. We also made a very good use of the pavilion in preparations to Champ, as Leah mentioned. We had a session before the urbanization ministerial where we discussed with the Champ signatories like Germany and Dominican Republic. After the ministerial, we continued to have the subnational feedbacks to the ministerial through our interactive dialogue. And at the end of this, at the beginning of the second week, we also had another wrap up of how we can advance in the negotiations and build up further and make the connection with Insurgent Champ. So Pavilion has proved to be its mission, delivering its mission, and it was a fantastic opportunity that we would like to continue every year, hopefully with generating resources and making sure that multi-level action, urbanization, and as you have seen, climate justice, loss and damage is strongly connected to our work. Um, After this slide, let me give you the floor now, the floor to Ariel, my colleague. This is one slide that is trying to capture, but I think there's more to say on that. So Ariel, how you have helped LGMA to stay connected and to amplify all our advocacy work. So the floor is yours.
Great, thanks, Eunice. Yeah, sorry everyone for my voice. I'm also recovering from post-COP sickness here. Yes, so I'm really proud of all of our work this year leading up to COP, but especially during COP. It was quite a marathon, and you all participated with such enthusiasm and speed. I think just it was from a comms perspective, such a wonderful expression of our cooperative work. So as Eunice mentioned, some of the kind of achievements that we have are the 14 interventions within the COP agenda. That doesn't also count the kind of dozens of additional interventions at LCAS and the ministerial, of course. Then we had, starting kind of at the beginning, our statement going into COP, which again, such a strong way to, of course, come into all of the advocacy ahead of time, but then also go into COP from a comms perspective. It was such a wonderful ingredient to have in our arsenal of tools here, just to mix metaphors. And then we had our press conference and this joint press release going into COP again. I think just what I would emphasize on all of these is just the communal nature of all of these statements, how we really showed the unified voice of LGMA, the depth and breadth of the participation through the quotes that different leaders brought into our different statements, through the signatures, endorsements. So I think that is really something that I would be looking to replicate later. I think that our CHAMP response, so we had a statement that dropped minutes after CHAMP was announced, showing our support for that. I think that was great, and a really effective way to show our collective response to that important piece of the work going forward. And then additionally, the campaigns that we ran during COP, to really advocate for the outcomes text, definitely learned a lot through that, and something that I would be looking to replicate and strengthen in the coming years. We finished with our LGMA final statement, which again, many hands went into, many hands and brains went into writing that, and I am very happy with how that turned out. And again, with deep participation also in quotes in that as well. Then the other two kind of tools that we are looking at is the daily bulletin combined with the LGMA announcements, again, showing kind of the strength of the constituency and the engagement on a daily basis. Those were grueling, and I thank you all for your contributions on that. I think that my feeling was that people found them valuable and also wanted to have their announcements in there, which is great. I think in past years we've kind of scrapped to get announcements together, and this year we really had great participation. So I think that is just, all of these things are just, we're really strong this year, and I look to either replicate or strengthen them next year. Eunice mentioned, working group of communications folks. I think that's maybe more conceptual. We did have a few meetings beforehand, but I would love to see your communications folks getting involved. It doesn't have to be throughout the year, but certainly earlier on, making those connections. And I have made several connections to different organizations, comms folks this year, and I hope to continue those. So all said, thanks again for all of your participation. And yeah, I think, this coming year, we have a great kind of recipe for how to go forward. And I look forward to getting more feedback about how this can be strengthened as well. So thanks. That's all from me, Eunice.
Thank you, Ariel, and once again, also great applause to you and all the colleagues involved in this process. I have now two more slides. The first one is about the stock takes. It is really an important element how we have brought the global agenda discussions to the local level together with UNGO. The report is released. It was there were a number of moments during the COP in Dubai, which was raised a couple of times, including the Marrakech Partnership event as well. So we were really seriously kicking off the planning or conceptualization how this can evolve to town hall COPs, which can be a huge support to CHAMP and other initiatives. This is my last slide. I would like to keep this as the last in the last 18 minutes or so of our webinar today. We can still go back to it, but I would like to encourage you now that this is now more open for contributions from our participants of this call, who were, most of them were part of the journey here in COP in person and even some of them virtually. Before opening the discussion, let me go through the things that is contained in this slide, which was already discussed a couple of times in the call already. So the first is the calendar. This is really a bird's eye view. Some of those dates are still not confirmed, and even some venues, and obviously there will be more to come. Let's remember, in the past, we have always mapped out our calendar in three folds. One, the UNFCCC or UN agenda. The second is the national and global agenda like G20, G7, and the LGMA agenda like our own summits, our own events, our own gatherings like Urban 7, Urban 20. So if you look at this in this perspective, what we can expect is that in February, we will start with global task force coordination meetings in Barcelona. ICLE will have its own decision-making discussions at the office level, but more importantly, there will be 6th UN Environment Assembly in Nairobi. This is particularly important in the fact that many of the climate ministers are gathering because they are the environment ministers as well at the same time. So it's an immediate follow-up. This year, there's a good opportunity. In March, as Leah mentioned, it will be Paris Buildings Forum. We already have heard that Japan or Tokyo will continue the Zero Carbon Cities Forum, which is mainly a virtual event. In between, some others may come up, but in June will be peak because the Bonn will host, City of Bonn will host the traditional 2 weeks of technical meetings, which are called subsidiary body meetings. Daring cities will be running in parallel to it. Last year we had UN Habitat Assembly. This year we don't have to have it. I mean, it's not scheduled at the moment. Therefore, it is giving us more chance to be more active in all of the SPs. But from ICLE perspective, we have another upcoming agenda, the World Congress in Sao Paulo. We would use this as the LGMA kickoff of the LGMA roadmap to Belém. Sao Paulo, City of Sao Paulo, City of Belém, they're all our members, and we want this ICLE World Congress to be really the moment where we gather until this moment in time how we would like to go towards Belém in 2025. July will be high-level political forum in New York. We are assuming that Urban 7 Mayor Summit may come in Italy. The agenda is still to be clarified. Urban 7 depends on the agenda of the G7, which is not announced even yet. But we have already started discussions with the Urban 7 in the sense that the Italian Ministry of Local Territorial Development, Urban Development is already in touch with the Urban 7 Secretariat and ANSI. So we will hope to get a good response soon. July, August, September will be full of, and even furthermore, the UNFCCC Regional Climate Weeks. Traditionally, these are in the global south, 4 regions. But as we have been always talking, I hope this year we can schedule a European Regional Climate Week, but it depends on the conditions. September is the UN Summit of the Future. The Global Task Force, coordinated by UCLG, will be strongly involved there. We already have also the leaders from the UN Secretary General's Advisory Group who were already involved in Dubai, who were part of this process, like Mayor Binay, Mayor Dijksma, and President Fatimatu. So many leaders of the group were part of the climate debate. So we will expect the Dubai outcomes will also have a huge contribution to UN Summit for the future. October is Colombia taking turn. It will be the host of the 16th Biodiversity Conference of the Parties. We have a strong agenda of subnational engagement, the tradition that is even much more stronger than the climate space. Therefore, having this recognition of nature and climate hand in hand is a huge asset. We already have a target 12. We already have a Kunming biodiversity roadmap. We have Edinburgh process. So all the tools are there. And especially if you have heard, the Minister of Environment of Colombia, Susana Mohammed, she's a long time alumni and member of the LGMA, pursuant to her role as the Environment Secretary of Bogota in 2014 to 19. She is a passionate leader of multi-level action and climate action, climate justice, fossil fuel phase out, and climate justice, including peace across the world. So we are expecting Colombia will be demonstrating a powerful leadership, and Minister Susana Mohammed will also be leading the UN Environment Assembly in February in Nairobi. Therefore, Colombia and Minister Susana Mohammed will be like a natural ally for us. And considering their strong relation with both Emirates and Brazil, it's a great opportunity. November is a crazy month. This is not the order of events, but we know there's the G20 Leaders Summit. I assume it will be overlapping during the COP dates. And we are hearing that Rio de Janeiro may host the Urban 20 Mayor Summit on the same date. This has an impact on how our leaders' mobilization, subnational leaders' mobilization in Baku will shape. Obviously, traveling from Rio to Baku in such a short time frame may not be easy for the Urban 20 leaders, which are mainly the mayors of the capitals of the G20 countries. But obviously, LGMA delegation is more than the mayors of the capital. So it's not impossible to make sure there's a complementarity. We can manage it, but we just have to be aware of it. Um, while we are working for Baku, as Leah mentioned, WOOF 12 in Cairo will take place. Obviously, not all the climate community is going to World Urban Forum, but we as LGMA will make the strong linkage between these two, and we will make sure there is a strong response from World Urban Forum, but also an input to the COP in Baku. In between, there are two major agendas that is slightly outside of our LGMA work, but the consequences will influence us. The elections in two important elections this year. Of course, so many elections are taking place, but one is in June, the European Union, European Parliament, and which will elect the European Commission or mandate the European Commission. So this goes all the way around to even to the GCOM leadership and others processes. And the other one is the US. Obviously, US, we're all aware US with change of from different parties can influence the climate agenda and engagement of the US. But we are seeing it in the past that the subnationals will continue, the US state, US cities, US stakeholders will continue, but their opportunities may be different depending on the result of the election. Under these conditions, an initial 3 point of strategic priorities for us in the next 2 years. First of all, champ delivery. Champ delivery in the sense that all these 71 nations, we wish some of them can already bring their new NDCs by Baku, which means around 5 to 10 of them maybe, that they bring new NDCs with more ambitious engagement of local governments and is fully in line with the champ. But this will also mean when we talk about champ delivery, as Leah mentioned, we have to now make the connection between search. We have to make the connection between Marrakesh Partnership, Global Climate Action Agenda. We have heard from Razan Mubarak that she's very committed to engage with that. And we have to also discuss how we will go to NDC partnership. The reason is that once again, CHAMP is a commitment of nations. And NDC partnership is a mechanism designed by nations. And there's a lot of opportunities. We have worked with NDC partnerships as associate members, institutional partners, and they have been part of the CHAMP process as well. So we expect there will be a lot of good opportunities. Second priority, town hall COPs. We have made 25 plus of stock takes. I literally want to challenge all of us that we have to go for 2,500 town hall COPs, all convened at the local level before COP, and then their results feeding into the COP through LGMA to the UNFCCC digitally. That this doesn't mean that all these 2,500 mayors should be in Baku, but the results can be visible at the COP with influence to the NDCs and other processes. And finally, UNFCCC agenda from finance, especially non-market approaches, to adaptation, loss and damage. Negotiations never finish in the UNFCCC. The topics are never concluded. And especially while we are very happy with multi-level action, we really have to focus on how to position urbanization as a thematic area in the UNFCCC topics. Therefore, we will continue to engage in the UNFCCC as well. These are the as an initial bird's eye view, the 3 priorities that we have to focus on. But as we have all discussed, let's take a deep breath, detox ourselves, refresh our brains and hearts, but come back with a motivated momentum. Ariel, I think we will come back with our calendars early as the second week of January, and then we can think about that by the time you can send up your additional inputs that can be visible in the LGMA bulletin, a January edition. Then we can make this calendar also visible to the extent so that we can rapidly start engaging ourselves to this busy agenda. I have only 2 minutes left. We can be flexible. I was not sure whether there was any hands raised. Joshua Cooper is taking the floor. Um, Joshua, can you also type? You have typed your Gmail account. That's great. But the organization or the city that you're representing, just for us to be aware of. Sorry if we have met before, but we could not. I could not recall you directly. That could be my lack of capacity remembering the names now. But it's so good to have your engagement. From Hawaii, Joshua. I think oh, now, of course, you were, of course, very actively involved. Joshua, now I remember. That's great. Thanks a lot. Any other additional input from other colleagues? Sorry that we did not put too much introduction or the Q&A time, but you're more than welcome to join us in even raising your hands now or follow up later on. I don't see too much hands raised. It seems a lot of input were already received. I suggest that we conclude this session, not just conclude, but the year-round engagement of LGMA. A big applause to all of you. It was a remarkable journey, and we are confident that we will be the beacon of hope for global climate action through multi-level collaboration and make sure that we respond to climate emergency in the most appropriate way, and that a just transition, an ambitious transition is taking place as quick as possible on all cities and regions and communities of the world. With that, I say bye to all of you. And Ariel is also showing us what we are all working for. Her beautiful son is really the reason why we are all working and making all these efforts for. The next generation should be even better than where we are today. And we will do our best to make sure that will happen. Okay, bye bye.